Reading this morning, our gospel reading comes from the gospel according to Mark, chapter 6, beginning at verse 30. And we pick up the story. Jesus has been to his hometown, been rejected by his own people who did not accept him as the Messiah, but he didn't get discouraged. Instead, he sent his disciples out to the towns that he had hope would receive him. And we pick up beginning at verse 30 of chapter 6. The apostles gathered around Jesus and told him all that they had done and taught. And he said to them, "Come away to a deserted place all by yourselves and rest a while." For many were coming and going, and they had no leisure even to eat. And they went away in the boat to a deserted place by themselves. Now many saw them going and recognized them, and they hurried there on foot from all the towns and arrived ahead of them. As he went ashore, he saw a great crowd, and he had compassion for them, because they were like sheep without a shepherd, and he began to teach them many things. When they had crossed over, they came to a land at Gennesaret and moored the boat. When they got out of the boat, the people at once recognized him and rushed about that whole region and began to bring the sick on mats to wherever they heard he was. And wherever he went, into villages or cities or farms, they laid the sick in the marketplaces and begged him that they might touch even the fringe of his cloak, and all who touched it were healed. The word of the Lord. Where do you go when you need to get away from it all? Is there some quiet place that you can go every day? Maybe you like to have a cup of coffee on the back porch in the early morning and watch the sunrise. I've seen some beautiful porches on these cabins in these mountains. Maybe you have a garden and enjoy tending your flowers or raising your vegetables. Or maybe you like to retreat to your room with a book on a rainy afternoon, get lost in the musings of your favorite writer. We all need these times of rest in our favorite places, don't we? We need breaks from the demands of the many responsibilities we bear for the same reason that we need food and water, in order to regain our strength and be refreshed. In truth, without such breaks, the responsibilities of life, with all this, it is all too easy to feel put upon, to feel trapped. Even the tasks that were joyfully undertaken can become burdensome when we never have a break from them. Mercifully, Jesus, our good shepherd, understands this predicament better than anyone. Jesus knows that even the joyful tasks of faith become burdensome when we face them without relief. Therefore, after the apostles returned from their missionary journey that he had given to them, Jesus led them away for a period of R&R, rest and relaxation, so that they could recover from their exertions both physically and emotionally. Jesus understood what the church often forgets. The race we are in is a marathon, not a sprint. It simply will do no good to fly off the handle and try to fulfill every need the minute it becomes known. Such a sprinter will never be able to finish the marathon that we call the journey of faith. Instead, they will likely burn out. No, if the church seeks to remain faithful and complete this marathon of faith, we must pace ourselves, help one another out along the way, and allow each other rest. As any gardener can tell you, fallow land that has been allowed to rest will produce more fruit than overworked soil. And the same is true for the church. Yet what happens when those pressing demands of life seek us out during our morning coffee on the porch, or when they hunt us down in our garden, or when they call us on that rainy afternoon because they know we'll be home? After all, Jesus did not turn his back on the crowds when they followed him and threatened to interrupt his plan to give his disciples a much-needed break. Jesus had compassion on the crowd, who were, after all, like sheep without a shepherd. Yet Jesus did not send his disciples, who had just returned from the mission field, back into the fray. Instead, Jesus, who presumably had a much-needed break for himself, while his disciples had spread the gospel, he stepped forward and taught the crowd and allowed his disciples the rest that they needed. Jesus had the opportunity to rest while the disciples worked. Now the disciples had the opportunity to rest while Jesus taught. They were a team. They ran to complete the marathon of faith together. They shared the work together, which allowed them to, in effect, spot one another so that no one person had to bear the responsibility of spreading the gospel alone. Friends, this is the way to build a church. Workaholics can build an organization, but they can never build a church. A workaholic disciple who works late and rises early without break may earn the admiration of others, but in the long run, he or she will undermine the teamwork needed to foster a reconciled community of faith. The church does not depend on the work of any one person save Jesus Christ, but on the willingness of his followers to work together. This willingness to work together means sharing responsibilities, trusting people to follow through, and the willingness to tell the truth in love when someone does not occasionally fulfill their responsibility. Actually, a person who fails to fulfill a responsibility may be someone in need of the most important break of all, forgiveness. Still, as it is often said, it can seem easier to do the work yourself than to find someone else to do it. Yet it is important to remember that the work of our church is not an end in itself. Our work is a means to build community, to build shared support and vision, and to pass this church on to the next generation. As important as the work is to feed the hungry, to visit the sick and imprisoned, to speak out against injustice, it is equally important to foster such care and compassion in all of our members. And the only way to do that is to share the responsibilities and work together. The good news is that our church has taken steps to make it more practical for us to work together. Our session and committees meet every other month rather than monthly to cut down on meeting time and allow for more time for ministry. Our committee day, such as today, is an opportunity to meet regularly every other month so that your committee can stay on track and that we can stay in touch as a church in order to work together. Yet an unresolved question remains. I still haven't answered it. Once more I ask you, what happens when the pressing demands of life seek us out during that morning coffee on the porch and hunt us down in that garden or call us on that rainy day because they know we'll be home? Well, this summer I have used the illustration of cultivation to describe the work of the church. The harvest, our goal in this work, that is potential disciples, will not likely seek us out on their own. They're not likely to come into our worship service on a Sunday morning just because our doors are unlocked. Instead, you will leave here today as a worker, charged to go into the field and begin preparing our community to receive the good news. This first step, as I have stated before, is to clear the obstacles that get in the way of our community. That is, every time you do an act of kindness, every time you help someone out beyond these walls, someone in our community, you put a face on this church and help them see we're not a cold institution, just a brick and stone building. But we are a loving community who cares about people other than just those who are here on Sunday morning. Even this first step, however, can become burdensome if we never allow ourselves a break from this small but important step in cultivating our community. Hence, on the one hand, as I have pointed out, we all need a place of retreat in order to maintain our energy and our interest in life and faith. On the other hand, acts of kindness sometimes mean that we forego our own needs in order to help others. It's a balancing act, isn't it? So when we are interrupted during our times of rest, how do we best honor Christ? Well, it depends, right? Usually, in most circumstances, it is okay to ask if the interruption can wait. Can I get back to you later? Or can I call you after I'm done? I often ask this question when I have family time. Most of the time, people will let you know whether or not they can wait. If not, or if you realize immediately that the interruption is pressing, then forgive it. Forgive that interruption and do what you can do to help. But return to your own break later. You can heat that coffee up in the microwave. Always return to it, if at all possible. In general, though, if you are able to distinguish between times when your own needs are more pressing and times when the needs of others are more pressing, then you will make a faithful call. Always remember, Jesus is our good shepherd who understands that even the joyful tasks of faith become burdensome when we face them without relief. We need rest in order to maintain the energy of our faith, even as we are called to offer rest to others, particularly that break of forgiveness. In short, we are a team. We run to complete the marathon of faith together. We share the work together, which allows us to spot one another so that no one person bears the responsibility of spreading the gospel alone. We both share it and we live it together in the church. Let all God's people say,